Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of our mole mash game. In our previous part, we learned how to move the mole randomly over these boxes using the math.random and math.floor function. Now, in this part, we will add the hit functionality of when you click on the mole, it will consider as if the mole has been hit and our score will increase and the mole will again move to a new position. Alright, so let's do that. Let me reset my game here. And now, how do we implement the hit functionality? So what we need to do is, when we click on the mole, that is when it will consider as if the mole has been hit. So when you click on the mole, that is a mouse event or a cursor event. This white hand that you see on my screen right now is a mouse cursor. So when we click on something, it considers as a click event or a cursor event. We have till now learned about keyboard events of when you press or hold down a keyboard button or when you release a keyboard button. We have learned two events of key down and key up. But now, how do we add a cursor event? Now, cursors are slightly different from keyboard events. See, the way a mouse can interact with an object is your mouse, this mouse pointer, can move inside an object or can leave an object, or it can hover over an object, and while it's hovering over an object, it can click on the object, right? So we have these four different types of mouse interactions, the cursor interaction with an object. Now you will notice that we have a cursor object in our game here, and this cursor is what we are going to use to detect the cursor click events. If you click on this cursor, you will notice that it provides you with three events on the top. It says cursors on entered object. This event, if you use, it will detect whenever your cursor, the mouse pointer, has entered an object. If you use the on left object event, it will detect whenever your cursor leaves an object. And then the last event here is on click at object. This is what we are going to use. So if you just click on this, it will add a new line of code to your game, and the black box will tell you what exactly is this event doing. Alright, so if you read this, it says event is triggered when the cursor intersects with an entity when clicked. Meaning that when your cursor is over an object and you click on the mouse, that is when this event is going to run. So just like keyboard events, this event cursor on click at object also contains two inputs, and you can see them written here. The first input is the name of the object on which we want the click to be detected. Now here it contains a random name that says sphere. We can delete this and type in our own name. We want the click to be detected over the diglet object. So type the name diglet. And then we have a comma and then the second input that tells you what will happen when you click on the diglet object. So here what we need to do is we need to implement the score functionality, and we need to again move the mole to a new position once you have clicked on the mole, right? So let's first add the score. To add a score, what we will do is we can just add a new variable called score, and let's give it a value 0. So we have a variable. Now inside the click event, we can say whenever we click on the diglet object, I want the score to increase by 1. So score plus plus. Score plus plus. Plus plus is an operator that increases a variable's value by 1. So score plus plus will increase the value of your score by 1. And now what we need to do is we need to display the score in our game here on this 3D text object. So to do that, we are going to go to the 3D text scoreboard object here on the left panel. First of all, let me ensure my cursor is in a new line of code. And now click on the scoreboard object here. And if you scroll down, you will see that there is a function called setText. So we have learned how to use strings in our code, right? So we are going to, inside the scoreboard.setText, it's displaying a string called mushroom that we will remove. And here we want the score to be displayed. We want the value of the score variable to be displayed in this text. But we don't just want the score value to be displayed. We want this SCORE colon and space, this string to be displayed as well. And for that, we will write the string. So we will write the string enclosed inside double quotes, and we will say SCORE colon and space. So we display the string, and then we say plus followed by the variable that we want to add. So now this is going to display your score text SCORE colon and space followed by the value of your score variable. So now when you run this, let's see what happens. Now see, if you click on the mole successfully, then your score is increasing and it's getting displayed on this text here, right? Really easy. So now, see what's happening is when we click on the mole, we also need to tell our computer to move the mole to a different position, first of all, because the click has happened, the hit has happened, and the mole should disappear from that position where it was when we hit the mole, right? So let's reset the game. And here, what we need to do is, after increasing our score, we need to set the X and Z position of the mole to random values again. And to do that, we can just copy this entire part of the code, press Ctrl C, and then Ctrl V or Command V, and paste it inside the click object. And if you click on Prettify, now when you run the script, what will happen is, see, if you click on the mole, see, anytime you successfully click on the mole, it moves to a new position after the click. We can also make different things happen when we click on the mole. For now, we are going to just move the mole to a different position. But see, what did we do here? We copy pasted this entire 6 lines of code from our timer inside the click event. And we had discussed this earlier that if you end up copying and pasting a bunch of lines of code again and again, that is not an efficient way to code, right? If we have to copy these 6 lines of code and run this 6 lines of code again inside our click event, this is not the best way to tell our computer to do this activity. There should be a better way where we don't have to copy paste these 6 lines of code again and again. And we can do that by creating our own functions. So till now, what we have been doing is we have been using predefined functions like this setText or setZ, setX. These are some predefined hatch functions. But now what we can do is we can also create our own functions. What do I mean by functions? Functions is just a bunch of activities grouped together that we can repeat anytime we want. So what we can do is, first of all, to create a function, just type the word function, and then you give your function a name. So what I want this function to do is move our diglet to a random position. So I'm going to give this function the name move diglet. Move diglet. Now see, naming a function follows the same rules as naming a variable. You cannot start the name of your function with a number. You can only use alphabets and numbers and certain specific symbols in the name of your functions. And you can only start the name with either alphabets or an underscore. Alright? So once you give your function a name, follow that with a pair of round brackets and then follow it with a pair of curly brackets. Now inside the curly brackets, we are going to define what's going to happen when this function runs. So we are going to tell our computer that whenever I want the computer to move diglet, it's going to run all these 6 lines of code. I'm going to copy these 6 lines of code, press Ctrl X or Command X, and then paste them inside the curly brackets of move diglet like this. So we just created a function by the name move diglet, and what move diglet is doing is whenever it runs, it will assign random values to the variables a and b, then floor them, and then set the X and Z position of the diglet based on the values of A and B using this equation. Alright, so now how do we use this function? See, what I'm going to do now is inside my timer. See, we are running these 6 lines of code, the same 6 lines of code that's present inside our moveDiglet function. So here, inside my timer, I can delete all 6 lines of code from here and just tell my computer to run the moveDiglet function. So we have to call the moveDiglet function here. Whenever you want your computer to run a function that you have defined, it's called calling a function. And to call a function, you just write its name. So the name of my function is moveDiglet, so I can just say moveDiglet and follow it with a pair of round brackets and end it with a semicolon. Now, whenever your computer sees this line here, it will mean that it has to go inside the moveDiglet function and run everything written inside the moveDiglet's function's code. So it will run these 6 lines of code anytime it sees the moveDiglet name in your code. So now what we can do is, even inside your cursor on click at object, because after increasing the score, we want to move the diglet. Now, rather than copying and pasting these 6 lines of code, I can just tell my computer to move diglet using the function name. Now see, I'm not copying these 6 lines of code again and again. I can just use the name moveDiglet, and because my computer sees the name moveDiglet here, it will jump back inside this function and run these 6 lines of code on its own. So all we have done is, we have grouped these 6 lines of code and given these 6 lines of code a name called moveDiglet, so that anytime we want to run these 6 lines of code, we don't keep on copying and pasting these 6 lines of code again and again. We can just use the name moveDiglet and our computer will know to run these 6 lines of code. That's all a function does. You group a bunch of line of text together and give it a name and use that name whenever you want to run those lines of code again and again. So now, if you run the script, you will see your code will run exactly the way it was running earlier. Every 1 second, this moveDiglet function is running, and in the moveDiglet function, we know that its activity is to make the diglet move randomly over these boxes. And now if you click on the mole, anytime you click on the mole, it will jump back to other box because we are calling the moveDiglet function, and the score is increasing as well. Now see, right now what's happening is we don't know if our click is becoming successful or not. So what we can do is we can add some visual or audio feedback, right? So whenever you play a game, if you are playing like a game on your phone and you're playing, let's say, some battle game. So whenever you are able to hit some other player, what happens? You get some form of visual feedback from the game that hit has been successful, right? Either there is a sound effect that plays or there is a pop-up that appears in the game that tells your computer that the hit has been successful. So that's called either a visual feedback if you see what's happening in the game, or an audio feedback if a sound effect plays. So here we have a sound effect called click effect. And what we can do is, anytime the hit has been successful, anytime you have successfully clicked on the mole, then we can play the click effect to tell our players that their hit has been successful. So let me reset my game here. And now let me ensure my cursor is inside the click event. So after increasing the score, I'm going to place my cursor here in between moveDiglet and above the moveDiglet function below the score. There is no need for ordering here, but I'm just saying that I want my cursor to be in between these 2 lines of code. And here now I can click on this click effect name, and now if you scroll down, you will see there is a function called play sound. So click effect is a sound in my game that can play the sound. So if I click on play sound, I have a new JavaScript line of code that says click effect.play sound. This will play the sound that's inside the click effect object. Okay, so I can close this black box And now when I run the script, see, I successfully clicked on the mole, so the sound effect played and the score increased. Now I can keep on playing, and anytime I'm able to hit the mole successfully, I can hear that I have hit the mole successfully. We can even add another 3D text that displays hit successful if you want. Okay, you can even try to add some more visual effects like some particle effects or some snow or fireworks anytime you hit the mole. You can try that as an assignment for your homework. All right, cool. So we have completed our mole mash game. It's a very simple game. And what we have done is, because we have used the cursor event here, and cursors also work for whenever you're using a touch screen. So you can even run the game on your phone. If you publish the project, once you have completed the code and added any modification that you want to do, and you publish the code, click on the remix button here, then your code will be published, your project will be published, and you will see a QR code. You will see a QR code similar to this. And if you scan the QR code on your phone, you will be able to play the game on your phone as well. All right, cool. So I hope you guys learned something new in this lesson, and see you guys in the next lesson. Bye bye.